what was interesting, of the 4 years that we've been certified as a great place to work, 2020 turned out to be our strongest year of engagement ever. Our scores went up in every single category. I think one, because employees were thankful that we had allowed them to quickly move home, that we gave an incredible amount of grace. If you go back to those days when not only am I home, my teenage kids home, and many of our employees had elementary students at home. And so if you're trying to work, our note to all of our leaders was give grace. And if an employee has to have between 2 and 3 off because their second grader needs to be on a Zoom class, work the schedule, figure it out. And our managers really rose to the occasion. And that gratitude for the grace we extended was definitely shown in our 2020 Great Place to Work surveys.
Good morning, HR. I'm Mike Coffey, and this is the podcast where I talk to business leaders about bringing people together to create value for shareholders, customers, and the community. Please follow, rate, and review Good Morning HR on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or at goodmorninghr.com. This week's episode finishes our 6-week look back at how the workplace has changed since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I can't think of a better person to end this series with than my friend Andrew Pryor, who's definitely one of the great champions for building amazing company cultures. Andrew is Chief Human Resources Officer at ECI Software Solutions, makers of the leading cloud-based business management software for small and medium-sized businesses. Andrew's list of accolades is a mile long, but he served in the White House, and over his 35-year HR career, he's helped build some amazing companies. And I've got to sit on the sidelines as a friend and often vendor watching him do that. And it's just, everybody who ever worked with Andrew tells me, oh gosh, if you ever get a chance to work for Andrew, work for Andrew. He's also been recognized as HR Executive of the Year by both the International Business Awards, so he has a Stevie, and Dallas HR. And under his watch, ECI has been certified as a great place to work and one of the most engaged companies to work for. And in his spare time, he's also co-author of the Smile Guide, Employee Perspectives of Culture, Loyalty, and Profit. And he's also been my fellow board member, client, and friend for longer than probably either one of us want to admit. Welcome to Good Morning HR, Andrew.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the invitation to talk.
So where were you when you realized that this whole COVID thing was something that we actually had to worry about?
Yeah, I 100% remember exactly where I was. My company is highly acquisitive. We are a private equity-owned company, and we had been doing due diligence with a major acquisition for months. And on March 15th, we were told the owners did not want to sell because they were hearing about the pandemic and were fearful of it. And we literally just watched 2 months of hard work vaporize. So I remember exactly where I was. The rough thing about that was the next day I had to present to our senior leadership our contingency plan. So going off of hearing we lost a major deal for COVID, I had to walk in the boardroom the next day and talk about COVID. So I was the most unpopular person in our company on March 16th. But we had a plan in place, and March 17th, the world changed for everyone.
Wow. So did you have to create that COVID plan, kind of in a very short period of time, or did your business continuity planning anticipate a worldwide pandemic?
Yeah, I don't. Our business continuity plan addressed fires. It addressed damage to property. We're in Texas. Where's the backup if the
tornadoes
by tornado, right?
Yeah.
We had a continuity plan for infectious disease in local communities, and it went something like this: if 5,000 people are impacted, if 10,000. If 100,000, it was nothing compared to the world is shutting down. And if you can, go home and hunker down in your house. We pivoted on March 17th to a global quarantine. And at the time, we had 17 offices worldwide. And we were talking about this because just last week was the 2 year anniversary. And I remember sitting watching our IT team loading monitors and desktops in people's cars and thinking, this is a lot of work for 2 weeks. We'll be at home 2 weeks, and in week 3, we'll be back in the office.
But then here we are 2 years later. How many employees did you have when on March 17th of 2000 or 2020?
Yeah, I would say we had approximately 1,100. So today ECI has 1,800 employees. So even during this global quarantine, we have grown and thrived, and we had 9 acquisitions last year.
And so you had at the time 17 offices. What percentage of those employees were actually already working remote versus working in an office?
I would say we code our employees. So like I'm tied. I live in Fort Worth, so that's our headquarters. So in Dayforce, which is our HRIS, I'm tied to the Fort Worth office. 2 years ago, about 80% of our employees were tied to an office, and about 20% of our employees, mainly R&D employees, were 100% remote. They never went to an office. They weren't tied to an office. And in the past 2 years, that number has really flipped for us. So 50% of our employees are 100% remote. They will never go into an office again. And about another 30% are hybrid. So they are 1 to 2 days a week. And then 20% have the ability to flex wherever they want to flex. So they can do 3 days a week, 4 days a week, or 1 day a week. Our world has changed. Our company is 100% hybrid now, which is every employee has the opportunity to have hybrid work if they choose.
Wow. And had y'all even prior to COVID anticipated that, even considered doing that, or is that? I mean, because like for Imperative, I mean, we're not quite as big as ECI, but I would have never dreamed that we would have gone remote. And but when we put our disaster recovery stuff in place, because it was built around a tornado making our office not available, and we're at the tail end of Tornado Alley here, so but then we did it, and it's really worked, and our productivity is as good as it's better than it's ever been, and my employees are loving it. So, and I think I'd have a riot if I tried to bring everybody back. But did you ever even imagine? Did y'all have those conversations? I mean, were you hearing from your software engineers, people like that, oh no, I never want to come to an office. I always want to work remote. Were you even hearing that from candidates?
I think 2 years ago, prior to the pandemic, we felt like our R&D positions really leaned that direction, right? Software creation allowed for that. But the rest of our company had really only started to embrace virtual tools because we were in the office. I remember early in March of that year, we had a conversation. How do we mandatorily require employees who are on a virtual meeting to turn their camera? And should we? Is that cultural to us if someone does it? And then the question came up, a lot of our employees didn't even have cameras to work virtually. Over the past 2 years, certainly we saw the same thing, Mike. Our employees loved working from home. Our company has thrived. We have grown. Our employees have performed and worked hard well. And so for us, we returned in July of 2021 back to the offices. And when I say returned, we said all of our offices are open for business. We would love to have you come back. And most groups, like the human resources team that reports to me, we decided we were all going to be there on the same days. We were going to be there on Tuesday and Wednesday. So everybody is in the office on the same day together. That gives us a sense of camaraderie. But other teams sort of divided things up so that some of the groups are there every day. And over time, even there, that has definitely morphed into, I think some employees who thought, I'd love to come back 2 or 3 days, are like, with gas being so high, I'm going to really take advantage of hybrid. And so I'm going to come in 1 day a week. And some people who started coming back in said, you know what, I really like, I like working from home. And so they chose to go remote. It's interesting, of our company with 1,700 employees, there are basically 2 people in our company who chose to be in the office 100% of the time. 2 out of all of those. Everybody else enjoys a hybrid schedule.
So the 2 extroverts who just can't be at home alone with the cat all day
Yeah.
Well, and that's me. I mean, throughout, I've got an office full, or had an office full of introverts, but I'm the guy who needs that social interaction. So I was, at the height of the pandemic when all the coffee shops were closed. I met a couple, but my coffee buddies I have coffee with at least once or twice a week. We were meeting at the Kroger because the only Starbucks open in town was in the Kroger, and we'd meet at Kroger and just walk the aisles, just to have our social time with over coffee and guy talk, and getting the hairy stink eye from the Kroger employees. But I just had to do it. So yeah, it's interesting that only two of your folks wanted to come back, and your corporate headquarters up here in Fort Worth
Yeah.
is it's got a really cool vibe. And I know you spent a lot of time designing that, and it's got this balance between fun and whimsy and professional and kind of tech.
Yeah.
Um, did it just break your heart not to be able to use that like you
Yeah.
designed for it?
So not just that, we're in the Alliance corridor. So you have our
Right.
building, which is designed for a little less than 200 people, and now on any given day there's probably 35 people there. So you can. I always say I can walk from the CEO's office, which is at one end of the campus, to mine, and where I used to see almost 200 people along that path. Um, I might see 35, right? Because and most of those 35 are new hires. So one of our programs for our customer experience team is new hires come in for 6 months and they have a scorecard of performance measures they have to maintain. When they have hit those, we then allow them to choose. Would you like to work from, you want to be hybrid 100% of the time? Do you want a hybrid schedule? You want to be remote? And so most of the people that are in our building are new hires, which is so very interesting. And that's why we've sort of been purposeful about what days different teams come in. And I know you talked about like our building and the design of our building, Mike. So I'll tell you, our building is not far from the Charles Schwab building. A beautiful, was it $1 billion campus that is. I drive by there, and their parking garage is much like the airport. They have the red lights or the green lights, and you just see green, right? And then you see the TD Ameritrade building, which was brand new, and it's vacant. And you go by the old Sabre buildings, which were vacant now. I mean, it's our world has changed from offices to hybrid schedules.
I was up in Alliance just a few weeks ago, and it was tumbleweeds. I mean, it's so weird. You could go in and immediately be seated for lunch at a restaurant.
Yeah,
It was just it's just a different world, and I think I see it everywhere where I go. It's How would you describe ECI's culture pre-pandemic? I mean, y'all were best places to work, great places, all that stuff. How would you describe what was unique about your
yeah.
culture pre-pandemic?
So what is unique is we're a culture of recognition, and that we give every employee in our company $10 a month to recognize their peers. And when an employee goes out to write a recognition, our intranet looks like Facebook. And so that every recognition is posted on our company. We call it High Five. And every employee then can like it, they can comment on it, and you can also boost it. So a boost says, hey, I want to give somebody $5 because they did such a great thing to help you out, Andrew, or it's such a great person we have a shared experience. We already had that feature in place, and it was ingrained heavily in our culture. And through that tool, we already, prior to the pandemic, would ask our employees every week, hey, Mike, how do you feel about your job today? That question is emailed to you every Wednesday. And it's a way for us to constantly engage how the employees feel, but also we can also see if suddenly things drop. Okay, what was the big decision last week? If the engagement scores go up, what did we announce last week that resonated well with our employees? Our engagement scores on that very simple question, how do you feel about your job today? We have a quarterly town hall meeting, which our CEO and our president hold, and it's sort of where they give a very transparent view of our company. And the engagement scores in the week following always go up because employees like to know and hear how's ECI doing. So we had those things in place globally prior to the pandemic, and they really helped us because what it did was everybody still has a chance for recognition. Everybody is still recognized on their anniversary. And we were able to to really more heavily rely on those tools as ever. When everyone is remote, you can't forget anyone is one of the things we always say. So it makes sure you're recognizing all employees, those that are active and visible, and maybe those unsung heroes who just keep their heads down and work a lot and maybe not speak up as much in meetings, the introverts. And so those tools have really helped move us through the process.
And I've read a lot, as I'm sure you have, about how you know, these big thinkers are all saying that remote workplaces are going to be really bad for the folks who just keep their head down and work, and they're going to get less recognition. And how do you guard against that in an environment where you've got people already all over the world, and now they're coming in the office rarely? How do you make sure that people don't get overlooked for their contributions?
So it's purposeful. So we really do purposefully look at that. There are reports that are generated from our system of like I get a report once a month of here's the employees who have gotten the most, and here's some people you might want to look at. In my team, our benefits employees get lots of those high five recognitions because they are always helping someone in need. I'm sick, I need help. I have a bill, I don't know what to pay, I need help. I had a baby, I need to add it to my insurance. So they get lots. Maybe people on my comp team who tend to work behind the scenes don't as much. And so my reports always show, hey, here, Andrew, here's where you might focus your recognitions. Another thing we do is as we end meetings, the leadership team, someone will say, okay, from a leadership team, who needs a high five this week? And so the leaders can strategically think about who's done big things in their business units and their verticals and their divisions and their functional teams. And that also helps, that constant conversation, to make sure employees don't feel left out. One of the most important things we do, though, is we actually measure and monitor how frequently our leaders are giving high fives. So we run reports every month. I said every employee in our company gets $10 a month, but every leader gets $25, and every executive gets $50 a month. And we run
to give to other employees
to recognize their employees in $5 increments. So if I'm a leader and I've used all my money, I've recognized everybody as well as I can, that's a good thing. If I'm a leader and I haven't given any recognitions, what's interesting is I told you we asked the question, how do you feel about your job today? The leaders that are giving the most recognition the most frequently, the question, how do you feel? Those employees are the most engaged. The leaders who don't use all the points, we literally are giving them. They're not spending their own money out of their pocket. This is ECI's money. Those folks have the lowest engagement. And it's happened year over year. You can literally see it. People enjoy being recognized. They like their bosses saying to them, well done. And so we measure all of those things.
And I think for the introvert types in your organization, which I imagine as software engineers and those folks, you've got more than a few of them. That kind of recognition is a lot better than being called out in front of a group of people and saying, hey, great job. Because there's certain people I know on our team when we're all together and I say, hey, Savannah, you did a super job. You really lived our values when you dealt with this issue this way. Oh, thank you. And having, all eyes on them is not what they want to do. But this kind of social media approach to it, is that a product that ECI makes available to customers, or is that just something y'all do strictly inside?
It's actually something we buy from a company called Achievers. They're a Canadian company, and the platform is built on it's their platform that we purchased. They're a vendor. And so part of it is, what do you do with all that money? Like if people are giving you money throughout the year, what happens to it? And employees bank that, and they can, at any point in the year, there's a catalog they can go to and purchase products, or there's a catalog where they can go. Our most common thing people buy are Amazon gift cards and Starbucks gift cards, because that's something, if you get $10 in recognition, it's something that you can go and buy you and your significant other a Starbucks and say, hey, coffee is on my company today.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, okay. So, and they can cash it out at any time, or do they have to wait till
they can cash it out at any time? Unfortunately, no matter where you live in the world, that money is taxable when spent. So once a quarter, we always have to tell employees, we're going to give you all this, but when you spend it, when you go to buy something, and our average employee probably gets, I would say close to $130 a year, 150 in high five points. That and people that have big projects, they'll get a lot more. I've seen someone say, "Thank you, John, for working." There was a software issue, and John worked all weekend at a customer site trying to help the customer get back online. And I've seen people get 10, 15 recognitions for those things. They're so visible.
And let's take a quick break. Good Morning HR is brought to you by Imperative, premium background checks with fast and friendly service. If you're an HRCI or SHRM certified professional, this episode of Good Morning HR has been pre-approved for 1/2 hour of recertification credit. To obtain the recertification information, visit goodmorninghr.com and click on Recert Credits. Then select episode 39 and enter the keyword Pryor. That's Pryor. On April 14th, I'll be hosting a webinar entitled Drug-Free Workplaces in an Increasingly Tolerant and Stoned Society. This free webinar is approved for 1 professional development credit for SHRM certified professionals and 1 hour of general recertification credit for HRCI certified professionals. You can register for this free webinar at imperativeinfo.com. And if you're listening to this podcast after April 14th, you can still watch the recorded webinar on our website for credit for free. And now back to my conversation with Andrew Pryor. And so you already had a process in place. And what was there that much to tweak then once you all went remote, other than just reminding managers pay attention to the bottom 10% or whatever?
For us, what the biggest thing I think that we did is during quarantine, so those actual first 4 months of everybody can't leave their house, we created a daily newsletter called Staying Connected. And our CEO would do video messages once a week on encouraging people. And we decided right off the bat, people were under enough negative news. So we wanted this thing. We featured like a silly meme of the day. We did deep dives into learning more about our different products, our different verticals. We ran articles on, here's what the CDC is saying about what is the safest face mask. Here's which is the best hand sanitizer. Here's how to keep your family safe. But along the same way, it was, if you're bored and don't want to leave the house, here's how you organize your closet, tips on organizing, tips on yard work. And our employees loved that. Not everything applied to them. As we got closer to May of 2020, what we saw is we knew a lot of kids were going to miss their graduation. And so we celebrated the graduating students of our employees, but we profiled each student. There were probably 75 kids that we got their pictures and wrote stories. And over the course of 2 weeks, we just ran newsletters about them so that, if you couldn't go to a graduation ceremony, but your peers knew your daughter was graduating from college. And we tried to do wherever our employees found was interesting and enjoyable to read. And we also realized we had to keep it short. So, I always have this 5-minute rule. If a newsletter, it takes me longer than 5 minutes to read, I'm not going to read it. So it was really a daily tidbit, a daily snippet into what was going on in our world and in the company at the time. And our employees loved it. Our employees, people would say, I look forward to the silly meme every day. And we had banks of silly memes that employees were sending us. So employees really got engaged. That helped us get through, I think, the darkest part of it. But in the middle of all of this, because we stayed engaged with the daily newsletter, because we continued our high five programs, in the middle of it, we were due our annual Great Place to Work recertification. And we decided, part of being recertified as a Great Place to Work is you participate in an engagement survey. There are 80 questions that the Great Place to Work Institute owns. And my role as the head of HR is I send them the email addresses of all of our employees. And how the employees fill out that survey, it's their feedback that determines if we are or are not. And what was interesting, of the 4 years that we've been certified as a Great Place to Work, 2020 turned out to be our strongest year of engagement ever. Our scores went up in every single category. I think, one, because employees were thankful that we had allowed them to quickly move home. that we gave an incredible amount of grace. If you go back to those days when not only am I home, my teenage kids home, and many of our employees had elementary students at home. And so if you're trying to work, our note to all of our leaders was give grace. And if an employee has to have between 2 and 3 off because their second grader needs to be on a Zoom class, work the schedule, figure it out. And our managers really rose to the occasion. And that gratitude for the grace we extended was definitely shown in our 2020 Great Place to Work surveys.
Yeah, great place to work, best companies, all of those, they're nice little things to put in your email signature. And certainly we put best companies in Texas and all that in ours. But the feedback you get and that sense that employees know, or at least that it confirms for me that the feedback I've been getting from my employees has been honest, because
Yeah.
they're telling a third party, somebody outside of the organization about us.
Well, and you constantly want to improve. And so by participating in these surveys, you're given data so that the next year you can be better, and the next year. And look, we're a software company, and one of our core values is crave greatness. And crave greatness is about innovation. And what we say is don't fear failing, learn from failure. And so there are things we try that we'll get feedback on, haven't been as successful, and you learn from it and you move on. And there are things that we try that are really well received. And the question is always, how do we repeat it? How do we scale it globally? And that's the value of participating in one of those culture surveys for me.
And so you've got the high five program, and then you've got your Wednesday pulse check kind of
Right.
email where you just test. And that's just, is that on a scale of 1 to 10, or what is that measure? How do you do that?
It's even simpler than that. It's four emojis, and it's a happy,
Okay.
an excited. So he's super excited. There's an unhappy, and there's an angry. And all employees have to
Okay.
do is click on them. That's all we ask. Click on an emoji. Now, behind it, we then have a chat bot which will kick in and say, "Do you have any additional feedback?" And if the pathways of that feedback that take an employee through a loop are, if an employee is unhappy, tell us why you're unhappy. Thanks for sharing, but tell us why. And then if you're happy, hey, we're excited to hear you're happy. Tell us what makes you happy. And the idea is most people don't, their feedback doesn't change on a daily basis. And so most people, what we ask is every week, click the emojis. And if you have anything extra, and so we'll see things like, hey, I really appreciated the town hall sharing how we were doing with our corporate bonus. We'll see things like, thanks for paying the bonus. And we'll also see a sad face or a frowny face. Sorry to see my long-term manager retiring, for example.
So really, I mean, and you had all of that in place pre-COVID.
We
Was there
did.
anything? Is there anything especially that you added to the process
Sure. Yeah. So
during COVID?
yeah, in 2019, Mike, we had launched a corporate L&D team. And we spent building this beautiful infrastructure in 2019 to fly
Leadership and
people.
development team, right?
Yeah, for our
Not labor
learning.
and delivery. I came out of healthcare. L&D is labor and delivery.
Oh,
So
sorry, Mike.
okay,
Yeah, I
so,
forgot that. Learning
yeah,
and development, not labor and
yeah,
learning and
okay.
development. So fly people in from all over the world to our Learning and Development Center in Fort Worth, take road shows of training to each of the countries. And so we spent a year laying the platforms for that, and the world changed on us. So what we did was we had to pivot to online training and to virtual training. And one, do you have the tools to do that so that you can do things like breakout rooms and have various conversations? Can what are the quizzing kind of tools you can use? What are the chat bots we can put in place? What are the surveys we can put in place so that we keep things fresh? And it took us a couple of months to move the infrastructure of our learning and development. We also partnered with LinkedIn Learning. We brought them on board so that wherever you are in the world, you can take a class. LinkedIn Learning through our LMS Docebo offers 16,000 courses. And we set a goal for ourselves. We'd like for every employee in our company to take at least 16 hours of professional development. And that was our goal. And we actually ended with every employee in our company having 31.4 hours of professional development. So I wish I could say we doubled it, because that point one I could round up, man, but I can't quite get there with 31.4. But we we really, our employees embrace it. And again, that's purposeful. So one of the things we learned is when everybody's separate, you have to market things like this. So we would have learning of the quarter where we would say every day we're going to focus on being positive, and we're going to share a short 4-minute video positive message. And our global senior director of learning and development every day would put out a link to a video on positivity and being thankfulness and gratitude, a spirit of gratitude. Another time we went to coaching and counseling, and all the leaders got something every day. We gave our leaders the ability to assign courses. So for my team, I decided one month that I really wanted us to focus on learning how to use Outlook better. How do we organize our days and our Outlook calendars? And there were 4 classes which I assigned to all the HR team. And then in a team meeting, we talked about who's doing something different. What did you learn? Who's using color coded folders now, and managers assigned courses throughout the year that they would then use their town halls to follow up and have almost like Oprah's book club kind of conversations on the learning.
And that was all in LinkedIn Learning.
It was. We used LinkedIn
Wow,
Learning.
I need to go. I need to go look at the Outlook one. Then I definitely need that one. It's I've instead of a zero box, I've got a 1000000 inbox, and so maybe I need to work on that. That's good to know.
The other thing I think it's important to say that we had to do is we had to, more than ever, we had to focus on mental health for our employees. And so, one, we beefed up the employee assistance programs globally. We operate in many companies where they have socialized medicine. And even in those countries, we purchase additional resources for an employee assistance program where it's possible. Some countries are very socialized with their healthcare and it's not necessary. But even then, you have to market those things. Here's our employee assistance program. Here is how you access it. Here's the things you can do. Here's who should call in your family. Here's why. We had we had town hall meetings where we did trainings on global health, where we reminded people about all the resources. And we used a company out of the UK, because we're a global company, to just facilitate various meetings on mental health. And that was a big focus for us last year because we were still locked in, and it became more important into year 2, and we had COVID fatigue hit, when people were you just wanted to go out and have dinner without having a face mask on. So mental health has been a huge part of our COVID strategy.
Yeah, that's that's interesting. But all of this stuff is online. How do you fight the online Zoom fatigue? And I can only watch one more webinar. How do you balance that? Because that's what I hear from employers all the time is my people are just sick of staring at the computer all day. They don't want to talk. They just want to send emails. They don't want to interact online, and they're videoed out.
Yeah, so we're a company of software developers, so that's not an issue for us. People love their computers. I will say, even for myself, now I'm the extroverted HR guy. Going as we've hit year 2, at first when we came back to the office, I was like, man, I don't want to drive. I have to get dressed today. I have to wear pants. Like I can't even wear my sweatpants at home, right? And but as we've been in the office now 9 months, and I more and more I grow forward to looking to my Tuesday and Wednesday. It's not that I don't love my dog who's sitting right here, And originally the plan was, I told my wife, we're going to institute take your dog to work day. Like all of our pets have been with us. We can bring the dogs and cats and whatever you want to in. But I'm enjoying more and more getting back to the office. But I'm thankful that is a choice I can make. Many people don't have that option. I am, and I don't mean to get on a soapbox here, but every one of us should be very, very thankful when we go to the grocery store. I hear people griping saying, there's no toilet paper, there's no paper towels. Look, during the height of COVID, when I was hunkered down in my home, somebody was stocking the paper towels. Somebody was stocking the toilet paper. And I'm thankful for those people who had to go to work and really risk their lives. And I think we should have a society that's a little bit more grateful to those folks. I always try to say thank you when I'm in the grocery store to people and I'm thankful that I have a choice even today. Our world has changed, Mike, and we didn't have a great deal. The 80% of us who were not hybrid before, now that we are, It's sort of new ways of working for us, or we are looking on Zoom calls, go to meetings, and Teams meetings all day long. So luckily, though, we've embraced it and it's worked well for us.
What do you say to that manager who says, well, if my people aren't in the office, I don't know what they're doing? Have
We
you
are
had that feedback or?
No, I honestly haven't, because we're a company that can measure everything. What I have had is the manager who has said, um, the culture will suffer if we can't all be together. And for us, it's very interesting on that little smiley face question, right? How do you feel about your job today? Our employees have stayed the exact same score of engagement, which is very high. It's almost double the national average. Our employees have stayed highly engaged, and that score has not varied up or down in 2 years. You could say it was gratitude year one for just being alive and not being quarantined and having jobs. In year two, it was gratitude to have the ability to hybrid. I do feel like in year three we have to change things for us, and so it's everything's already measured for us. We can see if people are working or not. What's not is, will our culture hold fast with the infrastructure, and when I say infrastructure, the facilities infrastructure we have. And so we're trying to stay ahead of that by changing our facilities infrastructures. We do want people to want to come in, and we do want people to feel welcome when they're there. And now when you walk into an office and it's, you used to have 100 colleagues and now there's 10, that's tough. And so one of the things that we're doing is to continue the camaraderie, we're changing the footprint of our offices. They probably will not be as big. We won't have as many. And, there'll be a few people in our office who will have dedicated offices. And then there'll be 10 to 15 that are just hotel spaces. I'm going to be in the office next Monday. I'm going to check out an office, right? Dedicated desk spaces, cubes, work areas will probably be a thing of the past, and people will come in and have a hotel space. And so if I'm only going to be there on Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm going to gather all the HR team. We're going to sit together in a corner and enjoy that, and then let somebody else have it on Thursday and Friday.
Wow. Wow. And I think, yeah, there's going to be, I'd hate to be in commercial real estate in the next 2 or 3 years, because there's going to be a lot of negotiations to smaller square footage, I think, for a lot of companies. And I think, Terry Swain, she was one of the early guests on the podcast last year. And she talked about how the pandemic identified who the bad managers were, because the ones who managed by walking around, looking over and micromanaging couldn't do it remotely.
Yeah.
And really struggled. So I can just look at the number of background checks ECI is doing and know that your talent acquisition folks are really busy right now. What are y'all hearing from candidates about what they want in the next role that maybe is different than what you were hearing 2 years ago?
Yeah, so certainly, if we weren't offering hybrid roles, I don't think we could hire anybody right now. I'm going to be very honest about that. The world has changed so much that it's sort of like health insurance and a hybrid schedule go hand in hand. Those are expectations of a minimum of doing business, and the flexibility of having tools. So for us, the world has certainly changed in this past year with the Great Resignation, and even a company with as rich a culture as us has been squeezed. And everybody has sort of a theory behind this, and I'll share mine for the 2 cents it's worth. I think we were locked in our homes and fearful for our lives and fearful for the lives of our family and our friends, and people reevaluated. Tell me what I want to do with my career. Am I living in a town I want to live in? And am I living, would my life be richer and better if I moved back to be near my elderly parents? Would my life be richer and better if I moved near my grandchildren? And so we've seen a tremendous amount of employees utilize the hybrid schedules to say, I'm going to relocate. It is so expensive to live in a big, big urban area. I'm going to move out to a rural community where I grew up, reconnect with old family and friends. And we've allowed that to happen. And those employees go from a hybrid to 100% remote. There's no office. So for us, we're seeing those tools. On a recruiting level, more than anything else, I think for us is we're seeing the squeeze of salary inflation. And again, I think that's partly because prior to COVID, you had a tremendous amount of very high salaries on each coast. You had the East Coast and the West Coast, right? And now that the world has gone hybrid, the East Coast and the West Coast are willing to pay a Silicon Valley salary to someone who lives in Saskatchewan or someone who lives in Arkansas or a rural area of Texas where we are. And so you're seeing salaries move up because of that salary inflation. And we're seeing people relocate to really where they want to live and dream. And I don't think we're ever going back. I don't think we'll ever go back to being in an office. Because of that, it's made our talent acquisition specialists, now they're brand ambassadors for the company. Now they have to be social media experts. They have to be savvy to career sites and how to set them up so they're attractive. And we are asking more of our talent acquisition team members than we have ever asked. And I've been in HR 35 years, a long time. I've never seen pressure on folks in my entire career the way I'm seeing in the last few months on the TA teams.
And I think what I'm hearing from clients and certainly our own experience is even at the admin clerical level, the pressure and competition for that talent and the prices that pressure is driving. Those hourly, those non-exempt employees' wages up in a white collar setting, but just they don't want to go back to the work office either. But once you open it up, and we've all realized, hey, we can work remote. Why can't we work remote with employees in Mexico or Canada? Or, I talked to somebody last week who's part of his team is in Ukraine. And so I think the competition for the jobs, for the best jobs at the best companies is going to intensify too. And as people figure out what they really want, and companies realize, oh, I can hire, maybe at a competitive wage, but not at the inflated wage that our current economy is requiring, somebody who's just as excellent from one of these other places where labor is a little bit more plentiful. It's going to be an interesting shakeout. What do you think in 2 years, ECI's, what's going to be different about your ECI's environment, labor-wise, workforce, teamwork-wise, whatever, in 2 years? Is there anything you see on the horizon coming?
Certainly, again, I think in 2 years, the newness of being hybrid will be, I think more people will be utilizing our hotel desk, our hotel offices. One, I think we'll see more employees in the office wanting to be a part of that experience, right? I think we'll continue to have a tremendous amount of virtual meetings, though. And I think for our company personally, we're going to expand our global footprint. So right now, ECI is located in the US, in Canada, in Australia. We have offices in Sweden, in Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, and the UK. And we are a certified great place to work in all of those countries but one. And because we have these incredible certifications, we're able to look at, what makes an employee happy in the Netherlands may not always be the same thing. So when we ask the Great Place to Work, ask a question, what do you think? My benefits are world class. Well, benefits in a country with socialized medicine mean something totally different to United States. And certainly, not only is there a squeeze right now, Mike, for compensation, there's a squeeze continue. We still are always going to be hit with this 10% inflation in America. So I think coming out of COVID, when salaries are under such compression, so are benefits. So I think our benefits packages, we're going to strengthen them, continue to strengthen them. We're seeing, we just launched an RRSP, which is the Canadian version of a 401k. And so we just launched that. We have had a huge focus this year on our US benefits. We've had a huge focus on our UK benefits. We gave all the employees 3 additional days because benefits are also a piece of compensation. And for us, we'll continue to focus there. So office is different, benefits different, pay structure is different. And the search for a job, which used to be I live in Fort Worth and therefore I'm going to look in Fort Worth, as you said, is now at a global scope. Now, that's harder on managers though. So I have a team in all those countries I just mentioned, there's someone from HR. And because of the global clock, there's never a point that I can get my team all together unless somebody's not sleeping. So if I do it in the morning in the US, someone in Australia is not sleeping. If I so we try to do meetings in the morning with the European teams and then at 5 p.m. to include the Australian talent acquisition people. And you just have to be more flexible in a day. We have a senior level position open right now in our company. And one of the things that I've said is the ultimate requirement for me is the person has to have international experience because you have to understand just the time consumption and you have to learn to take chunks out of your day. If I have an early meeting with Europe and a late meeting in the day, and they're all from home from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, I need to disconnect and walk around the block, play with the dog. And that's what I think that's just a growing pain of teaching people that and making sure that they're utilizing compassion, kindness, grace to say, I'm going to be out for a couple hours this afternoon to walk the dog because I have a meeting with Australia tonight.
Wow. Well, that is all the time we have. I am definitely going to get on your calendar to talk more about international workplaces. I think that's going to be something that we deal with more and more in the next few years, and you're doing it. So I want to pick your brain more on that. But thank you for joining me today, Andrew.
Thanks, my old friend. I hope I didn't talk too much. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to employee engagement. So
yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. It's like asking me how to select an employee. I'll just go on all day. So, and thank you for listening. You can find previous episodes, show notes, and contact info for our guest at goodmorninghr.com or on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And don't forget to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Rob Upchurch is our technical producer, and I'm Mike Coffey. As always, don't hesitate to reach out if I can be of service to you personally or professionally. I'll see you next week, and until then, do good, be well, and keep your chin up.